The Edwardian era was a time of change caught between the old world and the new. Servants still curtsied, but women were fighting for the vote. Grand homes had electric lights, but the future was starting to shake the walls. Welcome back to The Velvet Frame. We're uncovering 10 powerful stories from this unforgettable era dramas that don't just look pretty, they reveal the cracks beneath the surface. Some stories hide in plain sight. Stephen Polyakoff's masterpiece about Prince John, the epileptic son of George V, who was erased from royal history, understands that the most devastating cruelties happen within families who believe they are protecting their reputation. Matthew James Thomas embodies the prince with heartbreaking authenticity, while Miranda Richardson and Bill Nighy navigate the impossible tension between parental love and royal duty. The series shows us an Edwardian royal family discovering that progress has limits when it threatens their carefully constructed image. Arthur Conan Doyle investigates a real case of wrongful conviction in this 3-part masterpiece. Martin Clunes strips away the familiar detective fiction persona to show us Doyle as a man whose belief in justice exceeds his faith in the system. The series captures the Edwardian era's peculiar relationship with truth, a time when scientific methods were advancing, but racial prejudice still shaped legal outcomes. Arsha Ali's George Edalji represents the era's complicated relationship with outsiders who dared to claim their place in English society. Harry Selfridge doesn't just open a department store, he invents modern consumer culture. Jeremy Piven embodies the American entrepreneur who understood that Edwardian London was hungry for a different kind of shopping experience, one that treated customers as individuals rather than social categories. The series shows us retail as revolution, where women could move through public spaces with new freedom and working-class people could glimpse luxury without apology. Catherine Kelly's Rose captures the era's new woman, educated, ambitious, unwilling to accept limitations. 3 families collide over a house that represents everything the Edwardian era couldn't decide about itself. Hayley Atwell's Margaret Schlegel embodies the period's intellectual women, those who believed education and empathy could bridge class divisions. Matthew McFadden's Henry Wilcox represents old money learning to navigate new social realities, while the Bast family shows us the precarious middle class caught between respectability and poverty. The house becomes symbolic of England itself, beautiful, contested, impossible to possess completely. A love triangle destroys an artist's colony in Cornwall, but this isn't about romance, it's about the collision between Edwardian masculinity and artistic temperament. Dominic Cooper's Gilbert Evans and Dan Stevens' Alfred Munnings represent 2 approaches to creative life in an era that demanded men choose between sensitivity and respectability. Emily Browning's Florence Carter Wood becomes the focal point not because she's passive, but because she represents the possibility of a different kind of life, one where art matters more than social convention. Helena Bonham Carter's Kate Croy understands that in Edwardian society, love is a luxury most people can't afford. Her scheme to manipulate a dying heiress so she can marry her penniless journalist lover isn't villainy, it's pragmatism in a world where romantic idealism is reserved for the wealthy. Henry James's story becomes a meditation on how economic constraints shape moral choices. The Venice setting adds layers of decay and beauty that mirror the characters' complicated relationships with their own desires. David Thewlis's Inspector Goole arrives at a prosperous family's dinner party to investigate a suicide, but J.B. Priestley's 1912 setting becomes an autopsy of Edwardian moral complacency. Each family member's connection to the dead woman reveals how individual choices create collective responsibility. The adaptation understands that this isn't really a murder mystery. It's a ghost story about a society haunted by the people it failed to protect. Sophie Rundle and Miranda Richardson navigate the collision between personal conscience and social expectation. James Ivory's adaptation of M. Forster's novel shows us what it meant to be gay in Edwardian England, not just the legal dangers, but the psychological imprisonment of a society that couldn't admit certain forms of love existed. Hugh Grant's Maurice Hall represents the educated middle class discovering that their privilege has limits, while Rupert Graves' Alex Scudder embodies working-class honesty about desire. The film shows us how class and sexuality intersect in ways that make authentic relationships nearly impossible. Some romances burn. This one rots beautifully. Benedict Cumberbatch's Christopher Tietjens represents everything Edwardian England claimed to value: honour, duty, intellectual rigour, and Tom Stoppard's adaptation watches that world betray him systematically. Rebecca Hall's Sylvia doesn't hate her husband. She resents what he represents, moral certainty that makes her own chaos feel shameful. Adelaide Clemens's Valentine One-Up sees in Christopher not a monument to tradition, but a man trapped by it. Renée Zellweger disappears into Beatrix Potter with a performance that captures the particular loneliness of being too imaginative for your time. This isn't just a story about a woman who wrote children's books, it's about a woman who refused to let Edwardian society shrink her into acceptability. The film understands that Potter's real rebellion wasn't just in her art, but in her insistence on controlling it. In a world where women's creativity was supposed to be decorative, she built an empire out of rabbits and hedgehogs. Ewan McGregor's publisher provides the romantic centre, but the real love story is between Potter and her own fierce independence. When the world tries to edit her, she simply draws it differently.